Hi all, my name is Billy, and I want to talk about my general experience playing Dishonored 2 for this channel. See, this was always going to be a natural progression. What follows the first game if not the second? And with still not being at work, I wanted to make the most of the time I had to fill. Going in, I knew in the sequel I would be dealing with a duo of potential characters with all of the potential chaos endings that come with that. This is important because it basically means a greater amount of playtime than the first Dishonored. Along with having recently finished the first game, it's a lot of time to be spending in this world. Today I want to go over the pros and cons of this way of playing games, from a very personal perspective, as looking at experience usually tends to be. Outlining what I actually get out of games is probably not a bad place to begin. Actually, writing out this question just made me stare into the middle distance for 20 seconds, just letting the existential dread wash over me. Why do I play games? With that out of the way, I suppose it's some complex combination of want satisfaction for me. The ability to be in a new space, the process of learning new systems, and thought-provoking stories are a few. There's so many genres and so many games out there that I can usually find something interesting about play, and I think that is what draws me back. Sometimes it's to not think about life, and sometimes it's to put a mirror up to it and process it in new ways. Looking at these reasons, they do tend to be covered by seeking new experiences digitally. I usually end up cycling through new games as I become disinterested, constantly seeking new experiences to satisfy these needs, but replaying a game several times is actually a relatively new experience. Not to say I've not done it before, but not recently. Hey, lockdown life is weird. There's plenty of time to fill, and luckily I am in England where I'm being paid to be at home. One of the few positives in this sea of negatives. So why not see most of the major endings that Dishonored 2 has to offer? The time isn't an issue after all. By the fourth playthrough I hit a level of routine. Let's take a look at one of the levels, Jindosh's Manor, also known as the Clockwork Mansion. I can pretty much tell you my exact path through without referring to anything other than my brain. Referring back to the wants from games that I have, one of them is usually exploration, something that immersive sims tend to be really good at. Your toolkit invites some playful needling at what the world has to offer, but by the time of playthrough 4, things soon change. I ended up taking very similar paths through each time, as these were the ones that offered the least resistance. Although one nice thing about the chaos system is that it imposes some stipulations, along with me imposing some myself, meaning that run by run, the abilities I had available to me, whether I was going to kill or be stealthy, actually encouraged me to look into new spaces. Especially if you can kill everyone in a level, you no longer have to worry about exploring it at your own leisure. But by the very nature of repeating levels, you are no longer exploring new spaces as frequently, instead returning to places that I already know and are familiar with. Even when it came to approaching these areas in a stealthy manner, I already knew my favourite high spots, where the easy upgrades were, and how to get around some of the roadblocks. Autopilot can really kick in without new places to explore. The two characters both offer different abilities, meaning that through different playthroughs there were some differentiations, as well as the previous mentioned chaos system, whether I was killing or being stealthy. With these things in mind, what the game asks of us, and what we ask of the game changes. One time it is stealth, no kills, never to be spotted. Next it is stealth, but I do not mind being spotted. Maybe this one's going to be a little more murderous. These forms of limitations help breed creativity, the game acting as a suggestions generator. Have you thought of trying this before, machine? Even if it does get a little pulling legs off a spidery after a while. I have said before that I always play these types of games with the least lethality possible. I even stated that it's the game's fault for this, me being driven by the systems. Though with more research I believe this less and less, because if you have a look at the achievements on Steam, they do definitely suggest otherwise. With this being a character-driven experience with multiple characters, there is always going to be a core suggesting multiple playthroughs. Also, one of the major changes that the second game has is that they bring in voice actors for the main characters, creating a point of interest, as it lays out what the person you are embodying in the moment is thinking, instead of it being a blank canvas for you to paint your feelings on. It is another tool by the developers to express something, and one used well. As you can see in these clips, it is explicitly used to portray different outcomes on the character's psychology from your actions. The weight of your decisions have consequences, and we get to see them all. As often is the case, the story beats stay mostly the same, but the characters do not. Exploring all of these permutations is one of the reasons people replay these types of games. Seeing all of the possibilities is a joy. I do have two things to say on the matter. I do see why people do this. It was a driving factor for me. But having a moral binary, a good versus evil, means that they are predictable. None of it is particularly surprising. Secondly, it did lead me to Google certain elements to see if it was worthwhile continuing, specifically the no powers run. This is the only run of the game I've not done. Any further playthroughs might have achieved more in regards to permanently putting me off the game rather than actually digging up any more gold, but it is probably one of the more fascinating aspects, both mechanically and narratively. Perhaps one day I will come back. But there is still this spark of interest in seeing the possibilities. That's why I googled it, seeing what happens to these characters in the world. So it can't all be bad. The sequel does actually start making some half steps towards complicating things outside of the chaos system. There are some choices that you can make that do not affect the system at all. You are not judged by it, instead just giving you the outcome for your decision. As previously stated, this is my preference. This is most prevalent in the Dust District section. There are two elements to this section. First, a gang warring against the church, and second, a time-travelling mansion. Boy, what a sentence. The Dust District has seen better times, before the Duke demanded that the silver mines were exploited with reckless abandon, unthinking of the consequences both for the people and the location. The large amounts of silver being extracted causes a large amount of dust in the region. The tight with fine particles, which is not too good on the old lungs, not to mention the suggested labour practices engaged in. With this, a group of people have been valued only in the worth of silver that they can bring back for the town. A whole section of the city has become downtrodden and in rather a bad spot. Paolo and his howlers have taken advantage of this. A gang, controlling parts of the area trying to increase their territory to the whole city. They are opposed by the Abbey, who are not just concerned by the fact that they are gangsters, but also that Paolo is rumoured to be carrying a heretical artefact that is increasing his power. So this is all the background for you actually trying to get into Aramis Stilton's manor. Local mine owner, not seen for several years. He actually lost his mind to the seance that brought Delilah back, your main antagonist. So the mission is to get into Stilton's manor and figure out what has happened. The manor is locked by an ingenious lock created by Jindosh. The game suggests one route around this is either to bring Paolo to the Abbey, or Vice Overseer Byrne, the Abbey's leader, to Paolo. They will give you the combination to get in, getting what they want from the situation. You see, either of these choices will have an effect on the game, giving you a different ending. You can even crack the code on the lock yourself, and leave the district alone. Or by, run 3, I hypothesise that I could take out Paolo, take out Byrne, and then crack the lock by myself.
Did it. Now to find Aramis Stilton.
This then leads into the actual manor, a dilapidated mess. Stilton's mind is broken, but he's being kept alive by some sympathy deep in the Duke. At this stage you are given an implement that allows you to travel back 3 years ago, the night of the seance, to discover exactly what happened. The game even prompts you to wonder how your actions this night might affect the future. Well, first playthrough was vanilla. Got to the mansion, figured out what was going on, and got out. But this is the whole point of these last few paragraphs. Playing through the game multiple times encourages experimentation. What happened 3 years ago if I knock Stilton out and hide his body? Stop him from going to the seance that makes him lose his mind?
What would you think of
Well, he will come join me, planning the Duke's demise towards the end of the game, the Dust District in a much better way. With this, not only experimentation is encouraged, it's rewarded. You see, all of these permutations lead to an element of meta play going on, especially with the multiple playthroughs. What happens if I do X, Y, or Z? How will this change the world? With these large, serious decisions, you can experiment in the moment, but there is also an element of thinking ahead, sketching out your designs and seeing how you are going to be rewarded for this. This is something the game does really well. You're planning your next run as you're tidying the kitchen. You're thinking about the game outside of it. But this does not stop some of the boredom I felt reapproaching the same struggles. Even with this metaplay going on, the moment-to-moment exploration had been done and completed. I may uncover a new area on this playthrough, and something may be different due to my choices, but it is still the same game. This is kind of on me over the game. I knew there was a chance that these things would come up. I knew I could get bored, but I still went through with it. There's just the new experience side of things that is missing. It all comes back to what I get from games. I want the new experiences and the learning. This is just not available fourth time through. Even if certain aspects of the process were interesting, I think I'm going to need a good long break before playing this game again. It's really interesting to me to come out of this with some positives and feeling mostly negative. This is a completely normal way of playing games, one that I know many people engage with and get joy from the experience. It highlights the differences. At points in my past, I think I would have pointed the finger and called someone wrong for this type of play. But if you're not hurting someone else, there are a few wrongs in the way we choose to occupy ourselves within these digital places. Thank you for watching today. If you want more of this sort of content, then I would recommend subscribing. My name's been Billy. Goodbye.